And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Sean Jacobs, who during his near-death experience merged with God consciousness, which we're going to learn about and more. Sean, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it, buddy. I just want to first, before we start, say thank you to everybody tuning in right now. And thank you for being open to these stories. And I think that we have so much to learn from others' experiences, but particularly the experiences of death. It shows a lot about the way we live and how we can live. And I have been so enriched by this experience, and it's taken a while, and I'm finally starting to feel ready to be able to talk about it. So thank you for giving me the floor to do this, brother.
Well, thank you for being brave and willing to come and share it with the world. And on that note, let's start on the day it happened and go from there.
So the day that it happened, the moment that it happened, I was on the floor experiencing, I would say, a mixture of sensations in the body that led up to my heart stopping for whatever amount of time. I think the real world time might be 13 minutes for this experience. That's the number that feels right when I think back. And I'll just take you into my body. So it was a very internal, heavy mental sensation of just knowing that this was the end. And I think all 5 stages of grief were experienced very quickly, like bargaining. I can't believe this is happening. This isn't happening. Please, I'll do anything to make this not happen right now. I don't want to die. They say that you die the way that you live. And I've lived most of my life yearning. And so that was a moment of intense yearning to remain alive. And also an intense remorse and regret for every moment that wasn't this moment. I remember even having a thought like, I have no idea how good I've had it my whole life, and now it's gone. So in this experience, I think a lot of these stories, people discuss the sensation of time slowing down and your thoughts going, you know, a million RPMs, and that's exactly how I experienced it. It was all of these concurrent thoughts that culminated in, I guess you'd call it a life review, or maybe biblically judgment. So I began to first feel paranoia. Um, this accident that has occurred that is killing me in this moment has been fated my whole life. Everybody that I've ever met, the person that introduced me to the person that introduced me to the person that got me in this room for this to happen, um, my life has been in a conspiracy to bring me to this moment to kill me. And so that was my very human paranoia coming up. And then there was this sensation of surrender, and that chain of paranoia turned into this, well, actually everybody in my life has been conspiring for me to be set free in this moment. And that's when I started to pass over. And so visually, what I was experiencing concurrently with all of these running thoughts, it was like the typical, what you see in the movies, like the vignette of black growing towards the center, a light going towards the middle, and then not me getting closer to that light, but that light just becoming me and consuming me completely. And the mental chatter, which kind of embarked me on this life review, that kind of took the main stage. And so my thoughts kind of became my memories, and I had to kind of sit through this hyper reel of all of my memories going back from as far as I can remember, and then some stuff from before and possibly past life stuff. Just it was a big mess. It was a big mess, Jeff. A big old mess. But I essentially got to experience the way in which I perceived everybody in my life, for better or worse. You know, the good and the bad. And then at the same time experiencing their experience of me. But it wasn't visual. Like I wasn't seeing my mom saying like, I hate you, mom. I was just feeling my mom saying, I hate you, mom, as a 16-year-old not wanting to get up for school or something. Um, and I got to feel all of these micro, macro heartbreaks over and over and over. And then at the same time, all of this love and all of this beauty. And that was, and it's hard to describe, Jeff, because these are like milliseconds we're talking here, that all of this mental activity is happening. And I could feel my hands, my earth hands, starting to reach for somebody. And then this voice entered my awareness and psychically, right? So I didn't hear somebody, but I sensed this voice. And if it were to have a sound, it would be deep, muted, mellow voice. And I've tried to reenact this a lot, and there's no non-creepy way to do it, but it sounded like surrender to the experience. And once I heard that voice, it was reassuring, yet very commanding. Very commanding. It was like, sit down, and very humbling. And so once I heard this voice, everything that I am as Sean, as Cubs, the artist, as a boyfriend, brother, son, friend, whatever, a musician, um, all of that faded away. And there was no I anymore.
Do you consider this to be a conspiracy to kill you? Do you think you planned this out pre-birth?
Not only that, yeah, I mean, yes. Yeah, the short answer is yes. Um, I not only that, but I planned every birth of everything that has ever been birthed. And that's where we're going with this.
Uh,
And people have a very hard time hearing that. And uh, but when the body dies, you know, the physical body dies and the mental body dies. Well, the mental body houses your ego. And I'm very aware of the ego now, and I'm very aware of the ego of potentially the listeners. And I know that it can ruffle some feathers, but um, that conspiracy was just the full expression of the human sensation of paranoia, um, or of conspiratory thought. So at the same time, I also, are you familiar with the Hawkins scale of consciousness?
I'm not, but I want to ask you,
Yeah.
you reference it as paranoia, but is it possible it was just resistance to crossing
Yes.
over?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the paranoia was maybe part of the bargaining and the blaming, sort of. You know, it was like this. Um, they say the 5 stages of letting go or grief or whatever. Like I kind of had to, you know, really reconcile that. And you die how you lived, I think. And a lot of times, man, in my life, when bad stuff would happen to me, I'd be like, whose fault is it? Who did this? You know, and really it's, you know, we all, this free will, these choices that we make, um, we are at cause for everything in our immediate reality. And on the other side of paranoia is ultimate freedom, because if you realize you are at cause for all of this, then you are at cause to live miraculously, to do the impossible, you know.
You had this life review, and it appears that there were good things and bad things within your life. If you were to sum it all up, your life, how would you do so? Especially after revisiting that life review.
It was beautiful and exhilarating. It's perfect. Every part of my life is perfect. Like all the resistance, all of the tightness, the contraction, the expansion, the joy, the love, the hate, the pleasure, the pain, like it's perfect. That was hard to let go of. Because I was like, oh my God, it's all been perfect this whole time.
All right, who was the voice?
Mine.
Your higher
It was my,
self?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was my higher self speaking to me. And if I may be so bold, it was your higher self speaking to me. It was the higher self.
So you're saying that we're all one? We're all one
Absolutely.
higher self?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I kind of sidetracked you. You were about to tell
Okay.
us the next part may be difficult to talk about.
Yeah. It's difficult to orient the perspective of this next part, but the version of the afterlife or the after that I experienced um, was a primordial stew that was initially completely void of all. It was a void. It was nothingness. It was just empty, vast nothingness. And there was a tiny flicker of like Sean left, and I was like, "This is spooky, man. Like there's nothing here." And then that nothingness began to take form um, into almost this like orange glow, um, almost like being in the womb and someone's like flashing a huge flashlight inside, and it like that's kind of how I would describe it. And it was this vast, infinite, ever expanding ocean of warm, beautiful, blissful light. And that light was pure potentiality of creation and awareness itself. It was, I think, what they would call in the East the Brahman. Um, it was pure loving awareness and God consciousness. And I felt in that place that I was all things that have ever been and will ever be. And it was the most exhilarating and peaceful, pleasurable experience. It was, yeah, it was everything. It was ineffable. And the best descriptor that I have is that it was orange.
Did you have any communication with it?
That's the difficult part to describe because there there are no words there. Um, so my search for a frame of reference of how to describe this has brought me to a lot of places, but um, it was a space beyond duality where there is no dark, no light. It is all one. And in that, there was this unlimited understanding of all things that I think my human mind had to completely be obliterated to be able to witness and to take in. And um, there was a lot of information kind of instantly downloaded into my awareness of the nature of duality, that there really is no up or down or right or wrong, good or bad, because creation itself is the glory and the horror, the chaos and the perfection of the universe. And so I'm not sure how long I was there for because there certainly was not time. So um, when I remember back, that part of this experience feels like a flash, but I distinctly remember that I felt like I felt like forever. which, yeah, no, I didn't misspeak there. I didn't feel like it took forever. I felt like forever.
Like you were
And
eternal?
I was eternity. Yeah. Not like I'm a soul that's eternal forever. It's just like you are that. I am that I am, I guess, uh, would be like the biblical catchphrase for that. And it was the most healing and special experience of my life. Um, and if I can remember anything else um, about that, the Brahman, that place of God consciousness, uh, it would be that I immediately understood when I re-entered my body that that is what I am. That is what everybody is. We are all just one thing, and we all return to one thing. And um, I was worried about telling people about this because I think we all really want to see like our grandma and our grandpa when we pass over, and a lot of people do, and I didn't. And so, but what I will say is that I became my grandma and everyone's grandma. And that's a lot of love. Grandmas have a lot of love, but every grandma in history at once, whew, it was great. It was great. And there was a sense of the one became two in this odd moment where it was like, you have to go back. And then there was almost this remembering of, wait, who's you? You, what's you? And then it was immediately just like my consciousness started to descend back into um, my Seanhood, my selfhood. And I opened my eyes on the floor and gasping for air. And it was a bit of a traumatic experience after that because, of what had happened. But I had felt so touched and loved and healed and chosen. Um, not like special because it happened, but like chosen. Um, and like everybody else is so deeply chosen.
Chosen by
Um,
who?
my belief is that God created the one, we created two to experience duality, and then from two breaking off into this and that, into universes and whatever. Um, it is my conviction that God created us to experience God a billion trillion times over, to know thyself deeper, to love thyself deeper. And from walking away from this experience and integrating it into life, and um, I realized like if we are all this God, then our point of being here is to know thyself and to love thyself, to have these experiences, to know and to love others, to experience this duality, to return to that singularity of perfection with more awareness. So it's just growing, growing, and growing, and loving, and loving, and loving. Um, and someone's asked me before, like, well, what did that love feel like? Um, and I've said, oh, that the grandma thing, like, it feels like everybody's grandma at once, hugging you at the same time, but like, um, it was truly ineffable. Um, but I know that if God were if God were a noun, that noun would be love. And if God were a verb, that would be create. And so, at least that was my lesson. But I came here to create, to be a musician, to write about love, and um, but there are no accidents, especially that accident that day.
How long ago did this happen?
2021.
Okay, so it's fairly recent.
Yeah, yeah. I'm still just wrapping my Sean mind around it.
You're still processing it.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it could take the rest of my life. Um, but I will say that now that I no longer fear death, the only thing that I fear is not living, because the worst feeling I've ever felt was having to come to terms with the fact that I lived a life unlived in moments, took things for granted. I didn't love like I was brought here to, which is paradoxical because you're brought here, you make all the choices you make, and it's all perfect. But it has empowered me to get so honest and authentic with myself, and to know myself and find everything that's in the way of me loving myself, because that is really what's stopping me from loving others or judging others. And so that experience in a way has not ended. It has just been one unfolding after the next. And I love making music. I love all of my fans. And it is deeply my highest joy, my greatest purpose, my greatest excitement. But my purpose here is to help people to know and to love themselves.
Since your experience, how have you changed?
Self-undoing behaviors, self-sabotage. I've done a ton of work with the unconscious mind, um, because I realized there was a lot of clutter in there that I had to sift through, take out a lot of trash as I was, leaving my vessel. And so I'm not fearful, but I am motivated to get rid of some of that junk. So when it is my time to really go, that I let go lightly. So um, that's looks like weight loss. It has looked like making a whole new career for myself, a different kind of music with a different purpose. Um, I came out of this experience. Um, I had a sense of this as I was re-entering my body, um, that there was somebody waiting for me. And, I came out of this experience, and my grandmother passed 48 hours later. And a few hours after that, I found out I was having a daughter. So, I mean, it was like this immediate call, you know, it was a death, rebirth of myself, these two women in my life, of my lineage. So I became a father, and my life has changed because of that, because I wouldn't be a father if it hadn't happened.
Are you saying that you feel like you either sensed your grandmother or your daughter on the other side, or both?
Both. Yeah. Like this, one getting off a train, the other getting on, but not enough to conceptualize. My dad did call me like the next day. And I was trying to keep this to myself, obviously. Um, you don't want your parents to worry, but he called me the next day and said, your grandma has some pneumonia stuff going on, and we're just here with her. And I was like, I'm flying home right now. And both my parents were like, don't, like, boomer parents, like, don't worry about us. But yeah, I was just like, I'm getting a ticket. And I got there the afternoon before the evening she passed, and that was what, yeah. Uh, and since this experience, my relationship with death and has changed a lot too. So I no longer feel the need to console people for someone's death. It's like I feel more now like, I'm so sorry for your loss, and I'm so excited for your XYZ, because I know that feeling when you finally let go, it's like taking a sigh of relief that echoes for eternity. It's just this forever, and it's beautiful. And so to me, death is absolute celebration now.
Have you noticed since your experience that you have any new abilities that could be considered psychic?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Um, yeah. Mhm. It
Like,
took a year and a half, maybe. I mean, I think it happened instantly, but I was just reorienting into myself, and I think gaslighting myself for a bit. Um, but yeah, seeing beyond the veil, um, seeing spirits of certain kinds. My BS detector is, yeah, formidable now, and it definitely wasn't before. Um, and yeah, I'm able to move and channel energy through my body in a much different way that I'm trying to um, kind of figure out. So I think it's called Kundalini energy, I think. But yeah, like I just will now just from meditation trance out and convulse and have, have these like um, really special epiphanic moments. And yeah, I'm still learning it. So I would love to get more in touch with somebody who maybe specializes in kind of helping people with that. But at the end of the day, like I do know I have all that I need to really come into, you know, who I am now. And if these new parts of me are here, then they're part of the purpose. But I didn't get any better at singing or playing music or anything like that. Um, but yeah, just a new state of awareness. I think that might have always been accessible to me, and I think I was just maybe numbing it out a lot of my life.
what were your spiritual or religious beliefs prior, and how did they change afterwards?
So I grew up in a Catholic church. Um, I was very much devout. Like Jesus was my best buddy. Um, my cousin passed when I was 9, I think, and so that discombobulated me a little bit. Um, I wasn't like resentful of God or anything like that, but yeah, Catholic school just got a little weird as it does for a lot of people. And I was so shame prone already as a soul that it didn't really resonate with me anymore. I was kind of shaming myself enough. And so I think then it just went into like this weird nihilistic agnosticism. And then I got into Eastern spirituality after that, and that kind of curtailed into um, New Age spirituality and then into shamanism. And after this experience, I would say uh, unism, is that what it's called? It's kind of like all religions kind of integrated into this one belief system of this collective God consciousness beyond duality. And so I don't really have judgments about other religions. I like Jesus is my buddy again. I see him as this like incredible um, master soul that came here to enliven and awaken the planet and shift the planet into this new consciousness. And I think, you know, the Buddha did the same thing. You know, these people come at these times of unrest and these turnings of the epoch. And, um, you know, so I really just kind of believe in us, you know.
Some songwriters will say that music just comes to them and they're not sure where or how. And since
Mhm.
you've been to the other side, have you experienced songs coming to you from there?
I always did. Uh, that was something that I like later identified. Um, songs used to come to me like in a panic. Like if I didn't have my phone or something to record the idea with, I mean, I remember like working on my grandparents' farm, sprinting to my phone inside that was on the charger because I had this idea coming, and I was like, I've always had this almost scarcity mindset with it. I'm like, if I'm not going to capture this, then it's going to just flow into somebody else, you know? Um, think like the Gnostics had a really cool genius, I think. They're like these spirits that live in the wall and whisper to you or whatever. Um, but yeah, it all comes, everything, period, full stop, comes from that source consciousness, that singularity. Um, and ideas arise within us when we're ready and able to have the vessel to hold the message. Um, and sometimes we're not, and that's part of getting more ready for it. But yeah, I mean, all songs that really strike a chord with people are divine seedlings.
Could you take it as far as all imagination comes from there instead of the brain?
I could get on board with that, but I mean, yeah, because if all of our senses have just been, if our psyche is just an amalgamation of all of the senses that we've been inundated with and the machinations of other people's imaginations, right? Like, you know, if I'm having a nightmare, I'm going to see something that kind of looks like something I've seen in The Ring or The Exorcist or whatever. Like, yeah, I do believe every part of reality comes from the imagination of God, which is us. And I believe that in my work with NLP and MER, like, I believe that perception is projection. So your internal state is just being mapped out in front of you at all times, not just the way that you see things physically in nature, but all of the events in your life are being orchestrated by this super conscious.
Have you tried to connect with that consciousness since you've been back, like through meditating or?
Yeah, yeah. I think just having talks like this, I mean, I'm fully buzzing. I've been fully buzzing since we started talking. Um, some of that fear will come back in my body because I think like my protective mechanism of my psyche's like, that wasn't good. We're not doing that again. Um, that clinging part. But I try to remain in a state of awakeness, of being awake enough to realize that I'm always there and that we are always there. And we just are constantly falling asleep to that and waking back up. And we're supposed to, you know, we're going on these concentric circles of contraction and expansion, waking up and falling asleep throughout our entire lives over and over again. Um, you know, to almost like fall asleep and become passive to this illusion that we're in, because that's the whole game. We have to like come here and live a life and experience the duality to be able to return to this source singularity consciousness with a fully lived, loved, and enriched experience.
Are you saying that when we're here, we're asleep on the other side?
No, that's really cool though. I really like what you just said, but um, no, I don't think that resonates. I think that um, by falling asleep and waking up, I just think it's remembering who you are and the essence of the nature of who you are and who you're here to be. Um, and that loving awareness, that God being just love, I know when I'm connected to it, when I'm driving in traffic and I'm like, what is wrong with this dude in front of me? Or I'm honking at this guy because I now know beyond the shadow of a doubt, there's literally nothing wrong with anybody. There couldn't be. Everything is perfect. So if I'm honking at people, I'm asleep. If I am passive or tolerant of others, I am more so awake.
Before we started recording, we had a short conversation about ayahuasca. And do you think that ayahuasca is the same as having an NDE for some people?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard about people having multiple NDE experiences during ayahuasca. Um, you know, I've had wild experiences, you know, like time traveling and past lives. And but what I will say, the similarities between shamanistic medicines and this particular experience that I had is that this grand feeling of returning home, of whoever I thought I was, like that wasn't it. This dude in this place, in this space, in these feelings, like this is me. This is it. This is home. That's the dream. I'm awake now. Um, I think that another thing they have in common is that near death experiences and ayahuasca, high dose mushrooms, um, iboga, whatever, they are both absolute cures for atheism. Like, you can't really go into an experience like that and be like, yeah, there's nothing else out there, because it takes you there. So, um, ayahuasca has been, the few times I've done it, has been more gentle than this experience, but also really weird. And a lot of the stuff that comes in isn't necessarily yours. And wherever I went in this experience was all the way, all the way up, top floor.
During your experience when you were in the orange light, you mentioned
Mhm.
that you were or received the best healing that you've ever had. What about you was healed?
The sickness of my heart, of being a human, of living in this reality, of being inundated and brushing up against so much polarity, right? Light and dark, red versus blue, like, it is confusing as to be here. And it is a system that is designed to make us forget that we are God. And in that forgetting, we, and in that forgetting, we ascribe ultimate power to false idols, to money, to pleasure, to drugs, to alcohol, to religion. And it ultimately just causes more suffering, because we're really just trying to get back home. And in an instant, all of that craving and just reaching and loneliness and hating myself, hating other people, it was just gone. There's not even an echo of it anymore. And just a moment of temporary relief from that is ineffable healing.
Do you think that we have to forget who we are? Otherwise, the experience here will be meaningless.
No, no. It's my sense that once we all wake up to this, you can't kill someone else if you believe this. You just can't. You can't wish harm on someone else. Um, if you know at your very core that you are of the same essence as everything around you, then there's no room for discord. And it is my hopeful belief that humanity is turning to that. Um, that's why people are talking about healing and going down to the Amazon. And I mean, this wasn't spoken about when I was in high school. Like, it wasn't even on the radar. And I feel a tide shifting, and I feel a returning to one. And it could even be possible that humanity at large, or whatever our souls choose to incarnate, we might just be doing this eternal flower of life dance all the way from hell, being completely separate from each other and God through the epochs and the ages, and then returning back to, utopia is the word. And then utopia into nirvana, and then nirvana into the one again, and then being birthed back out into separateness. And I believe that we are all headed for that love.
Do you think there will be an endpoint to reincarnation?
No, no, I do not, because for there to be an end, there would have to be a beginning, and it doesn't play like that. From what I've experienced, um, e- eternity is eternity, and change, chaos, perfection, creation, and destruction, those will all happen forever and ever.
I know this may seem way out there for you, but since your
Let's go.
since your experience, have you seen UFOs?
No, dang it.
Well,
I haven't.
not everybody, but some do. So I just thought I'd
Yeah.
ask.
My partner is she's had quite a few experiences. And I'm like, tell me again.
Mhm.
Tell me about it again. But not since we've been together. And I know, funny enough, a lot of people I know that go down to do ayahuasca in the jungle, they'll come out of the hut, and there'll be four UFOs circling it. I've heard, I think, six different stories of unconnected groups of people being like, yeah, we all had a UFO experience 2 nights in a row, like in Colombia, Finca, whatever. And I'm like, wow. But it makes sense to me that they would congregate into a single space where multiple people are reaching such a high vibratory state. It's a beacon of light out there in a universe of darkness.
If you had a friend that was grieving over the loss of a loved one, what type of
Yeah.
advice would you give?
I texted my friend Alex this morning, whose mother passed. He announced it today. And I said what I've always said since 2021, since this experience. I feel so deeply for the loss in your heart for this beautiful woman. And I am so happy for her freedom, because I mean, it's true. I mean, I just lost um, an ex of mine who's the dearest loss of my life, a couple weeks ago. Um, and she's been kind of with me and visiting, messages since. And I'm just so happy for her. You know, she's awake. She woke up from the dream.
How did your friend respond to your text?
I have to look. I think he said, "I love you, man. I'll be back in town next week. Need to catch up." But he's with it. He gets it.
Hmm.
He's yeah. But I have never gotten any pushback from that, because we all want to believe that passing over is a beneficial experience. We're all afraid of death because it's scary. We don't, and it's not necessarily scary because we don't know what's going to happen. Like, we have the primordial fear of it because it probably isn't a completely pleasant experience all the way around. If you're dying from an accident or you know, the ego doesn't want to die. The ego wants to live, tries to protect you. It's the prime directive of the unconscious mind. So I just know the benefit now of not fearing death anymore.
Would you say at the point that you crossed over, was
Yeah.
it like a seamless transition that was instantaneous? 1 second you were here and 1 second you were there.
hmm Yeah, and I equate it to heartbreak, because it could take you 10 years to get over somebody, but we all kind of know there was just a moment where it just stopped hurting, like where you stopped like wishing harm, or being jealous or stalking their whatever. There's just, usually it's when you fall in love with someone else, but dying is falling in love in the deepest love. It takes us a long time to be ready to let go of something, but when we let go, it's gone. So that struggle that I had, with my dying experience, like, that was just the struggle I chose. But the second something came through and was like, yeah, just surrender to the experience, I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. And then I did. And then it was just instantaneous. No more Sean, no more mom, dad, dogs I've had, ex-girlfriends, my Spotify stats, my million monthly listeners I'm obsessed about every day, watching the ticker. Like, bye. It's okay.
Sean, after watching this podcast, you may have new fans that want to reach out to you and talk about the afterlife. Are you open
Yeah.
to that?
Yeah. So I try to post once a week on stories and reels so that my inbox is fully open to anybody who wants to talk about grief, drug addiction, um, loss, breakups, psychedelics, self-discovery, music, production, marketing, anything that I have brushed up against or touched in my life, it's now knowledge. And so what I do ask is that when you follow me, Cubs Music, CVBZ, on Instagram, and you send me a DM if you'd like to talk, just put the red exclamation emojis on top. I instruct people to do this because that's how I know someone wants to be heard and someone's heart is reaching out and it's not just, spam or whatever. So if you'd like to reach out, I usually try to put an hour and a half every day aside for speaking with whether it's fans or people that find me from a reel or whatever. And so my inbox is always open.
Can you tell us about how your music is going to be changing since your experience?
I tried holding on to the same formula after this experience, but I was not the same person. So the formula didn't work anymore. Not only did it not work, inexplicably, my numbers just started going down, 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 regardless of higher quality music, more posting it more, um, kind of bafflingly. And I started to realize I'm not the same person anymore. This isn't going to work this way. It worked in 2018. You're here to make a real difference, right? If you want to make a difference in people's lives, then, on the micro, then let's look at the macro. Like, you need to make a difference in music itself, in the culture, in the business. Um, and the only way to do that is to make music that has never been heard before. So I have embarked um, on creating a new genre, which I love so much. And I will be kind of releasing it in the next few months. And it is its own sound. So it's somewhere between the heavens and earth, ethereal dance and folk Americana, Western, and yeah, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. So yeah, I don't think that definitely would have happened if I hadn't experienced heaven. Because I'm just trying to now make heaven in music and help people feel that.
Do you have anything else that you're working on that you want people to know about?
I'm just working on me. That's it. And trying to share that and step into who I am and embody everything that I am. And I used to say I want to help people, but I don't. If you're listening to this, I don't want to help you. I just want to love you because that's the only way you can help someone. So uh, I just want to know you, and that way I can know me and love you so I can love me.
Sean, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
To whoever this resonates with, whatever it is that you're looking for out there, you can only be found in here, in your heart. That adage, if you're the person you've been waiting for, it's not only true, but when you get to the place you're trying to get to, you will realize that that place is you and you had it all along. You are not separate from the person next to you. You are not better. You are not worse. You are not under God. You are not a son or a daughter. You are. And I'll take God out of that. You just are. Not when you die, not before you were born, always. And that's awesome. And you're awesome. I love you.
Thank you, Sean. I love you too, and I wish you massive success with your next music release.
Thank you. High fives. Later.
Cheers.
Thanks, bud.
Thank you. Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.